afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. My name is Brian Muccio. I am a health coach and a consultant to Tufts Medical School. And today we're going to be talking about men's health. A couple quick things. Let's see. Okay, so if you would just please keep throughout the presentation, if you would keep yourself muted and your camera off, that would be great. And we're going to get going in just a moment. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I see people still joining, so we'll wait just another moment. Okay. Okay, so for those of you who just got in, my name is Brian Muccio. I am a health coach and a consultant with Tufts Medical School, and today we're going to be talking about men's health. If you can get, just once again, if you can just keep yourself muted throughout the presentation and keep your video off, that would be great. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and I'll go over them at the end. And I'm going to jump right into it. Okay, so we're going so the title of this presentation is Men's Health and Wellness Throughout the Lifetime. Okay, so June is Men's Health Month, which is why we would do a topic like this in June. And we're going to talk about some basic information and then get a little bit more specific as we go. And again, we're going to talk about why good health is important for men. Okay. And this wheel, this diagram here, outlines the 6 dimensions of wellness. Okay, so from environmental, emotional, intellectual, physical, social, and spiritual. Okay, so these are just general kind of areas that we need to consider, balance, and work on for overall health. Okay. Right now, so we're going to talk about what happens when health is neglected. So a shorter life expectancy in males, it's not just a result of expected causes, things like accidents and heart disease, but men are dying sooner from the majority of conditions that should affect men and women equally. So only 30% of men's health is determined by genetics, and the rest is determined by self-care and socioeconomic factors and resources. On the right side, it's this little graphic of the 5 most common health problems for men. Top of the list there, you can see, is heart disease, and that's the #1 cause of death for American men. And a lot of times this is contributed to either smoking, having high blood pressure, or having issues with cholesterol. And these are all things that play into men having that as right at the top of the list as the #1 cause of death. #2, going down that little graphic there, diagram, is lung cancer. So men have a 1 in 15 chance of getting lung cancer someday. And for Black men, actually, the disease it goes to 20% more often than white men. So there is some discrepancy there too across different ethnicities and so forth and different races. So Number 3 is alcohol abuse. Alcohol is the most commonly abused drug in the United States. Approximately 9.8 million American men have an alcohol use disorder. We're going to talk a little bit more about this too as we go. Number 4 is skin cancer. By age 65, men are twice as likely than women to get melanoma or skin cancer. By 80 years old, they're 3 times more likely to get skin cancer. And the 5th one on the list is diabetes. 15.3% of men in the United States have diabetes, and more men than women have pre-diabetes. So from 37% to 29% of women have pre-diabetes. So those are the 5 most common health problems for men. And certainly if you add all those percentages up, that's affecting a lot of men. Okay, so we're going to talk more about how we can kind of shift some of those numbers in favor of men's health here. Okay, so there's seven bullet points here we're going to go over in more detail throughout this presentation. So top of the list there is seeing your doctor and when to see your doctor. We're going to talk about reducing stress, prioritizing sleep, movement and exercise, nutrition, replacing unhealthy habits, and the importance of social support. For those of you that have joined a little bit late, welcome. I just want to ask you if you could just please mute your audio and turn off your camera, that would be great. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit more about when to see your doctor. Okay, so this chart goes through kind of the age spans here. If you look at the top line, so blood pressure from age 30 through 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Find a provider you trust. Go to your doctor if on a regular basis for evaluations and physicals and that type of thing. If blood pressure is off, high blood pressure and that type of thing, you're more likely to get, increase the risk of strokes, heart disease. There's a lot of different risk factors with high blood pressure. So that's very, very important. Same with cholesterol. So through 30 through all the way up through 80, just through the decades, want to keep track of cholesterol screening. You can discuss aspirin for cardiovascular disease prevention, starting at 50 into your 60s, 70s, and 80s. Colorectal cancer screening through 50, 60, 70, and 80. Diabetes screening there is, again, a very important one. If your blood sugar is not checked, hormonally, you're going to be really off as far as your insulin and that type of thing. And there's a lot of health factors that can, or there are a lot of health issues that go along with diabetes. So that's something that's extremely important to screen for. And again, this can be part of a physical where they're looking at your sugar levels and that type of thing. Lung cancer screening for high-risk patients. So high-risk patients would be smokers all through, again, the decades, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. A pneumonia shot starting at age 50 on. Prostate cancer screening or counseling starting at age 40 on. And you can discuss tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis shots from 30. Those are like bacterial infections and so forth, starting at age 30 on. And also something, shingles. So you can discuss shingles shot as well, starting for like 60, 70, and 80 through your 80s. Some people that have had chickenpox, sometimes the virus lays dormant in the nervous system, and then that could reappear later and cause a lot of different health issues. Okay, so so those are things to keep in mind for preventative care, and when you visiting your doctor, your healthcare provider, you want to keep these things in mind. Okay, next slide is, we're going to talk about ways to reduce stress. Add moments of your life where you can just, moments of your day where you can de-stress. You can use technology in this case, apps, Headspace, Calm, Personal Zen, Happify. There's a lot of different apps out there to reduce stress. In addition, it's obviously very important to identify what the stress is. For some people, it might be time management. You might have a zillion things to do in a day, and how are you organizing that? Are you working off a list? Are you working off goals? Are you setting priorities? Are you working on the highest, most important things kind of on your list? And time management itself can be a huge way to reduce stress. In addition, other areas could obviously, you're going to be at work. Relationships for some people. Are you frustrated in a relationship? Or do you want to get into a relationship and maybe you haven't been, you're more isolated? Issues with family members, friends. So understanding could be financial. Maybe you not making enough money and it's bills are piling up. Maybe you're making a lot of money, but you're working all the time and you don't have a lot of time to enjoy yourself and enjoy the money. So that could be stressful. So one of the keys going into this whole aspect of reducing stress is going to be identifying what is stressing you, what you can be doing to help alleviate that stress, and then kind of work on that, kind of in a systematic way to get everything, kind of your stress levels lower down, and balancing those areas of your life for better health. Going on here, we're going to talk about exercise and movement. It's extremely important. So there's a ton of research that's come out over the years, recent years, about the exercise, the impact of sitting throughout the day and how that impacts health. So we want to definitely build movement into a given day, week, and so forth, and throughout the course of a year. Generally speaking, some rough guidelines. There's a lot to physical training, movement, and that type of thing. But generally, if you can work in maybe 2 to 5 days a week, that's optimal between flexibility, aerobic, strength training. For strength training, of course, you want to build muscle mass, keep your bone density, and keep your strength up, which, because over just the course of the aging process, it's going to be diminished over time. So we want to work strength, whether it be stuff with body weight, strength training, or weights. Doesn't really matter so much, but resistance training is important. Aerobic training, of course, for your cardiovascular system. So whether that be a brisk walk, maybe maybe it's on the treadmill, maybe it's a rowing machine, a run, riding a bike, swimming, something aerobic to build into your workouts. For some people, it might be like a group fitness class, like more of a high intensity type training class. Flexibility is super important. Like I said earlier, we're sitting a lot, so we have the demands of, our body's adapted to the sitting position. Our hips are flexed, our spine tends to flex and round, our shoulders can round forward, right? So we need to kind of offset those habitual patterns that we're in by either doing some type of stretching routine. Maybe it's yoga, maybe it's something even like a Tai Chi, which is like a movement system, or a martial art, or something that you can build that mobility and flexibility into a workout or into your day. So you're hitting all three of these areas. One point on this, which is important too, is it's super difficult for most people to not be doing a lot with physical training or movement and then go to 5 days a week, from 0 to 5 days a week. But if you could build in maybe start off 1 day a week, and then add 1 day a week. When I went through a period where I had an exercise routine, I got really busy, I got out of it, and then I just put it in my calendar. Every Friday I was going to do this certain workout that I do, and I just consistently Friday, and then I was able to add a day. But I started with 1 day a week, and I was consistent with that for several weeks, and that's a good point of departure to work with. Sometimes we can just derail ourselves by trying to do too much at once. Okay, we're going to talk about prioritizing sleep. Sleep is a really, really big deal. It's really important for brain health, to recover here. This chart just outlines the different recommended hours of sleep per day, and it just takes you through kind of the development cycle. So a newborn might need 14 to 17 hours, an infant 12, perhaps 12 to 16 hours. Toddler 11 to 14 hours, and that is including naps for those first three, for newborns, infants, and toddlers, and preschoolers. So a preschooler might need 10 to 13 hours. A school age school age child 6 to 12 may need 9 to 12 hours of sleep. A teen from 13 to 18, perhaps 8 to 10 hours, and adults from 18 to 60, 7 or more hours a night, and 61 to 64, 7 to 9 hours approximately. Over the age of 65, 7 to 8 hours. And now this can vary too, because everyone's got different constitutional kind of makeup. Some people could get by with less sleep. I think key takeaways on sleep is that virtually every expert on sleep, they agree on the same, basic details. So one is try to keep it as regular as you can. So going to sleep at the same time, and waking up at the same time, and just keeping that consistent as best you can. So not to modify your sleep schedule. The other thing would be, if you hear a little background noise, if you can please mute your mic, that would be great. So yeah, so another thing with sleep would be careful of blue light. So light has different like a different frequency signature, and blue light is very stimulating to the brain. So if we're looking at the laptop, the TV, tablets, and phones, we're staring at that right before we go to sleep. That can interrupt and disrupt sleep. For some devices, they might have filters which could help. In some cases, there's even glasses, like blue light filtering glasses, that could help. If you have to stay up and work throughout, part of the night or something like that, you might want to research that a little bit more. But if you can, try to minimize before you go to sleep some of the electronic devices, and that can be helpful. Other things too, on the concept of light, is try to keep a really dark room. It's amazing how even curtains or blinds are not, that the sun comes up, depending on which direction your window faces. That sun coming through at 5:30 in the morning now can definitely wake you up, and then it's like, oh, I'm up, I can't get back to sleep. So now you didn't get the last hour or so of sleep, whatever you needed to feel good. So that's an issue. And as well as little things too, like keeping the room cool. Usually between below 68 degrees. If your body, when you sleep, your body cools down. If the room in your house is a little bit on the warm side or a little bit too warm, that can impact your sleep. And then in addition to that, we could even add like drinking late can interrupt your sleep. Alcohol disrupts sleep patterns. For some people, eating late disrupts sleep patterns. So if anyone having trouble with sleeping needs to just take a step back and look at the bigger picture of all these different things that might potentially impact them. Okay, so prioritizing sleep is extremely important. Okay, we're going to talk here about nutrition. There's a quote here: the food you eat can be either the safest and most powerful form of medicine or the slowest form of poison. Okay, so very, very good quote there. With regard to nutrition, the big subject there, we could again do a whole presentation on nutrition in and of itself. But for now, we just wanted to touch on some real basic concepts here with nutrition. One of the simplest ways is to just break things down into inflammatory foods and foods that are non-inflammatory. So foods that are really helpful as far as kind of taking inflammation down would be things like berries, strawberries, blackberries, blueberries, fatty fish, could be salmon, things even like sardines, herring, vegetables like broccoli, um, avocados, peppers, mushrooms, uh, grapes, even fruits like grapes. Uh, tu- uh, Turmeric, which is a spice, is an anti-inflammatory. Extra virgin olive oil. If you cooking with oil, you can think about adding extra virgin olive oil for cooking purposes. Dark chocolate, believe it or not, is an anti-inflammatory. Is actually really good for you. And also tomatoes, cherries. Could add more to that list, but keeping in mind, you could Google this too. Uh, Anti-inflammatory foods, and then on the other side of that spectrum are foods that are more likely to cause inflammation. This would be foods, most fast foods, uh, potato chips, pretzels, refined carbohydrates, which would be pasta, white bread, things that what's are high on the glycemic index. So I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the glycemic index, but the glycemic index basically classifies food and how fast it kind of converts into sugar in your body. Okay, so for example, white bread is something that's higher up on the glycemic index, and so why would that be, right? So when we take something like wheat flour and we pulverize it, we process it, break it down into all this fine particles, and we eat that, and all those little particles, what's happening there is there's more surface area, and your body's digesting all that very quickly, and it's turning into sugar more quickly, and it's creating an insulin response from your pancreas, and it's spiking your blood sugar. So things that are refined carbs can be are inflammatory. In addition to that, fried foods can be very delicious, right? But what happens too, that when foods are cooked at very high temperatures in oil, it turns some of those oils into like trans fats and things that are just really kind of toxic for us and hard for our body to break down and deal with. In addition to that, I would add sugary drinks, sodas. I think a typical can of soda, something like 39 grams of sugar in one can of soda. That's a lot of sugar. And in addition to that, even juices, sometimes a little bit of juice is okay. Maybe you mix it with water or something like that. But drinking a lot of fruit juices, those can be also high in sugar. And so something to keep in mind. Other things quickly here: processed meats, things like beef jerky, canned meats, hot dogs tend to be inflammatory, and trans fats are inflammatory and really harmful to health in a lot of ways. These are like shortening, margarine, things. If you read ingredients and you see the ingredient partially hydrogenated soybean oil or anything partially hydrogenated, you want to avoid those types of things, donuts and those types of things, because they usually contain partially hydrogenated oil, which are trans fat. Okay, so that's a quick just a quick overview, because diet and nutrition is such a huge subject. Just break it down. I find it's helpful into inflammatory, anti-inflammatory, or even alkalizing and acidic foods is kind of the same concept, okay? And you can always, I think it's an easy way to stay on track. Moving on, talking about alcohol. So to reduce the risk of alcohol-related issues, the 2020 to 2025 dietary guidelines for Americans recommends that adults drink and can choose not to drink, or to drink in moderation by limiting intake to two drinks or less in a day for men. Okay, so this graphic at the top is just kind of outlining the alcohol by volume. Beer, 5%. Malt liquor, a little bit more, 7%. Wine, 12%. And then something like spirits would be more, 40%. Okay, so, being aware of when you're drinking, the alcohol content is something to keep in mind. Moderation, so a few drinks a day, one or two drinks, I think it depends on what you're drinking, and personal constitution too, but not to drink excessively. So important to moderate alcohol consumption. The next thing we're going to touch on is seeking social support. So this can come in the form of friends, family, coworkers, therapists, community members, support groups. Super important if you're dealing with issues. Men may be a little bit less likely than women. I mean, women are oftentimes extremely social and a huge social network, and sometimes men are maybe a little bit less apt to speak with their friends about personal issues. If that's the case, therapists can be a huge help. Someone that's non-judgmental, someone that's just like a sounding board that you can just, discuss things with on a personal nature. Again, I think guys might be sometimes a little bit reluctant to go down that road, but if there's things that you're not getting the support that you need from friends, family, coworkers, or people in your community, to consider other options. So for everyone, this might be different, right? So we might have different outlets to seek the social support, but super important for overall health. If we're just kind of like an island and we're isolated emotionally and we're keeping everything kind of inside to ourselves, over time, that can create a lot of things, right? Anxiety, depression, and can be just exhausting emotionally on us and taxing. So seeking social support. And laughing a little more. Always laugh when you can. It is cheap medicine, as you see the quote there. This is really important. And this is, like, how do we execute this, right? So do we want to just sit in the office and stare at a blank wall and start laughing? Well, it's probably for most people not going to happen. I know for me personally, what I like to do, especially on a super stressful day, or, I deal with people with chronic pain issues. I deal with people with neurological issues, Parkinson's, some people that have had strokes, and sometimes it's, in the morning, I got a lot on my plate preparing for things and appointments. And one of the things I do is sometimes I'll just go on YouTube and I'll, put in the search bar something like, clips from the Tonight Show or the Late Show or something, and they'll have a 5 or 6, 7 minute clip. And sometimes in the morning, I'll just watch that as I'm eating breakfast and laugh, and it changes you physiologically. It really does. For some people, it might be stand-up comedy that you can look at, either Netflix or Amazon Prime or something. But laughing is a very good thing for health. Sometimes I think we can forget about that, but add that in, try it. And it does really help. I find, and a lot of people, just get a lot of, physically, they just feel better when they're laughing and just kind of enjoying themselves in that way throughout a week. Okay, so we made it to the end. I want to thank you all for joining. I also, if anybody has any questions, let's just kind of quickly check here. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so the footnotes, there are some footnotes, because on the back page of the slideshow, we have some resources, and those footnotes were just taken from different periodicals and things. Okay, does anybody have any questions? If not, I want to thank everybody for their time, and we really thank you for joining us today. And hope to see you and hope to be with you in the next webinar.